Welcome to Brokusatsu, two brothers exploring tokusatsu shows and related media. I'm Harry.
I'm Sam, and I apologize for all the names I'm about to mispronounce.
Same. Here it is, the first real episode, where we have begun our coverage of Kamen Rider Double, or Kamen Rider W, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah, I was honestly more confused about that than I probably should have been.
Translation is a art form, and nothing makes that more clear than the fact that people can't determine what the damn name of the show is.
Is that an actual, argument going on in the fan community right now? What the actual translation for the title of the show is? That seems pretty important.
I'm sure there's a right answer, but a lot of people call it double and a lot of people call it W.
Oh god. If we say double, are we going to be, pissing off, 50% of the people listening? Should one of us say double, the other say W?
Alright, look, I got dibs on double.
Okay, I guess I got dibs on W?
Let's get the shirts. Team Double, Team W.
Alright.
With our powers combined, we are...
Idiots? I don't know.
Yeah, let's go with that.
So yeah, we are exploring episodes 1 and 2 of Kamen Rider W, and this is the first time I am going to be seeing any of these episodes. As a reminder, I am completely inexperienced in this series. I am here at great pains on behalf of my brother's podcast, and I had no idea what I was getting into this show, which made it very confusing when I appeared to be watching some kind of Die Hard remix when the episode opened up.
Yeah, this is a show for children that starts out with real-ass guns blowing the shit out of a elderly man and him dying bleeding on the floor in front of his horrified protege.
Yeah, in the first 60 seconds of episode 1, how many people die? It appears the mentor of the main character is gunned down bloodily, and then the main character and his sidekick wipe out an entire floor of an office building full of security forces. They take out a helicopter,
which crashes, and you can't discount that because it's a highly populated city that's gonna drop somewhere.
So many people just dead immediately in this children's show.
There's a weird sliding scale of that with these things because, Super Sentai shows, they're usually a lot funnier, a lot for kids, but almost always in the first episode it'll start with some goofy monster showing up and blowing up 50 buildings in downtown Tokyo, which realistically is Man of Steel level casualties.
Thousands, tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, in this case they go a little bit more towards realism, which makes the violence hit a bit harder, and I'd say probably 100 or so people are dead.
Mm-hmm. We probably don't have to quantify this. In the opening, the mentor that gets gunned down, I was a little clear. Did we never actually see his face?
You kind of see part of his face. He very much has the hard-boiled detective thing with the hat pulled down, kind of covering a lot of it. You see more of it in the... Well, spoiler, I guess, but he gets a bit of a prequel movie bit. Occasionally he shows up under certain circumstances and various specials and things like that. It's not a secret or anything, you just kind of don't see all of his face a lot.
Oh, I was wondering if it was a secret, because there's a lot of information that I am very much not on top of at the start of this episode, and by the close of episode 2.
It's a detective show. There's some mysteries going on in this city that is lively and bright, but hides a deep darkness.
Yes, and that deep darkness is USB sticks out of the late 90s.
There's a big shootout, a helicopter crash, and the two main characters, whose names we don't know yet, one of them asks the other if he has the courage to ride with the devil. A transforms into Kamen Rider Double, which takes us right into the intro. Sam, what are your initial thoughts on the intro?
Oh, I skipped it. Was I supposed to watch it?
Motherfucker, this is one of the best intros.
I'll watch it? Okay. Ask me that next episode.
We're watching a double episode block, so watch it for the first episode.
Okay. It's reflex. I always skip the intros on shows.
For someone who seems to be worried about making people on the internet angry, that's probably the first thing that people are going to be actually mad at you about.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's muscle reflex at this point. I watch a lot of Netflix, you know? I just automatically just jump that bar forward a minute. It's...
You gotta learn with tokusatsu shows. Watch the opening, skip the next episode previews.
Okay. I do skip that as well.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Then we get proper into the first episode, and I'll pop up briefly to say, so the names of these episodes, because Kamen Rider Double very strictly has the 2-episode thing, so episodes 1 and 2 are called the W Search, and then episode 1, the first half, is kind of subtitled Two Detectives in One.
So after the intro opening credits, we appear to have a time jump of about a year. Is that accurate?
I think about a year's right.
Okay, and we zoom in on a courier who turns out to be both there to give an eviction notice to the main character in his hard-boiled detective agency, and also apparently is the daughter of the man who was gunned down in the previous intro.
Akiko Narumi, the daughter of the chief.
Daughter of the chief. I'll get into this a little bit more later. Is she aware that her father is dead?
Oh, she is definitely not aware, because she's showing up, she's evicting Shotaro, who initially she sees as just kind of a weird fedored asshole who's just living in the building that her father's looking for. She's going there because she doesn't know what's going on with her father. She hasn't seen him in a couple of years, and she's going there to find out what's going on.
Okay, so she was under the impression she was evicting her father from the premises?
No, she just thought she was evicting some weird guy who was kind of squatting.
Squatting in her father's house.
Yeah, her father owned the building and she inherited it.
Okay.
Maybe not inherited it, because if she'd inherited it, I think she might have gotten some clue as to what was going on with her dad. She goes there and meets Shotaro, one of our mainest protagonists, who is, due to the way certain parts of the internet culture have developed a little bit, and his wearing of a fedora and kind of insisting on weird old-timey detective stuff, he's a little bit more problematic than he maybe used to be.
Now, is that a fedora or a trilby? I want to make sure we get this right.
I don't know the difference, and...
Should I Google that right now? Fedora versus trilby?
You know what, yeah.
Fedora versus trilby.
Welcome to our first Sam Googles something that doesn't really matter segment.
Oh, it totally matters. It would appear to be a fedora. Trilbies appear to have kind of a looped collar on the back of the neck.
And now you know.
Unless this internet image that I got it off of was wrong, in which case, we're completely incorrect.
Shotaro's there. He likes to think he is a hard-boiled detective. What was your reaction to that, Sam?
Yeah, he was definitely putting on an air of wanting to be the hard-boiled detective. He had all, the Philip Morrow books on the shelf. He, definitely just mainlined the Maltese Falcon when he was in high school, but he is maybe the least hard-boiled detective I've ever seen. He makes Jake Peralta out of Brooklyn Nine-Nine look hard.
And the show is aware, at least.
They seem to lampshade that at every possible moment.
He's a big ol' softy. As is shown when a femme fatale from his past shows up, or just kind of just a lady, but it's kind of how it's portrayed. Marina, somebody who he grew up with, shows up looking for her boyfriend. And so we got our first case, with Akiko kind of tagging along angrily because nobody is stopping to explain things to her, so she's going to be a bit of a point of view character for the audience.
So they show up on the scene of a crime or an incident in downtown Tokyo where a building appears to have partially melted.
They go and talk to the cops, one of which tries to drive off Shotaro, but then the older, a bit more experienced one, Jin, kind of calls him in and says, yeah, the supports were melted, there's a couple of cases like this, but this is way larger than the others, and we're not sure exactly how it's going. And I think Shotaro brings up the word dopant, and Jin kind of shrugs and has a knowing look. It's an open secret in this city that there's something a bit extra going on.
Well, I mean, if multiple buildings are falling over in the downtown of the city, I would hope that people would have noticed by now.
It's a common occurrence in this town, Sam.
Yeah, that's mentioned later. This building, it's at a 45-degree angle, just kind of leaning over, clearly going to fall down and just kill thousands more people than I'm sure already have died. Huge body count in episode 1.
Shotaro, gets us his cell phone and starts calling out some clues to his partner to figure out the exact nature of the enemy who did this, but then he looks over and says, never mind, I don't need to know anymore, because it turns out the monster is standing right in front of him, and we see the magma dopant.
By the way, I'm not sure we mentioned, the partner is the person who, in the very opening scene of the show, was pulled out of a beam of light in the middle of this evil experiments research lab him and the chief were breaking into.
Yes, very mysterious.
And so, yeah, there is a very brief fight with the main character and the magma monster, and he escapes it with a wrist grappling gun.
Yeah, good old grappling hook.
Seems to have just a lot of nice, fun, easily toyifiable tech gear, this guy.
Yes, buy all his playsets and toys. Kamen Rider Double is kind of when the toyetic elements started to get really ramped up in the shows, for good or mostly ill. But here, it's not too bad, because everything makes a lot of sense in its configuration.
I guess so. He does seem to have a camera that flies around.
Yeah, but I mean, it makes sense for him to have a camera, and for a, flying around surveillance device makes a lot of sense for a private detective, right?
I guess it does. That's what people are using drones for now.
In a couple seasons after this, we have sets of chicken nugget weird tracing devices used by high school children to fight space, evil astronaut evolution monsters, and hamburger phones, and it switches are dumb.
Okay, we'll get to that later. So after that, we jump to a scene filled with evil, rich 1% villains. Clearly, these are going to be the main antagonists of the entire series.
Just a real messed up family dinner. This is the Sonozaki family. They are going to be sticking around for a while.
What does the patriarch of this family say? A building melts and people die. It's a common occurrence in this town.
They don't give a fuck about shit going on.
Which seems very strange. Like, these guys, they're clearly a wealthy family. These are clearly business owners, and there are buildings melting in downtown. Like, even if that doesn't impact their businesses directly, like, they're a part of the greater economy. It would affect the economy, it would affect their wealth and status if these buildings are melting and people are dying.
The short-term, weird capitalist thing of they don't care as long as they're selling their Gaia memories. Who cares about the damage to the infrastructure? They got to get the bottom line for this quarter or whatever.
That's true. These do end up being the people who are selling the evil make monster devices. What are they called?
Gaia memories.
Gaia memories. Yeah, just huge USB sticks. The kind that in like 1999 you would carry around 64 megabytes of data with.
Yeah, you could have like 2 whole music albums on them, Sam.
It's amazing. Modern technology.
Psycho, the older daughter, which you mentioned may be a pun for Psycho.
Well, yeah, it seems to be spelled Seiko, but it's pronounced Psycho in the show.
Tokusatsu stuff is totally into that kind of pun, so I would say that's a good catch. She mentions that the man who sold this particular memory is her boyfriend, who is kind of a big up-and-comer in their whole evil empire.
So after that, we jump back to the main headquarters of the hardboiled detective, and we meet back up with his assistant.
Philip.
Oh, and it is at this point that Akiko finds the secret base that has been installed inside her father's building.
There's a secret room in the back, which on the outside is hidden by the brilliant disguise of, I think, having a hat on the handle. And inside there's a giant Olympic, swimming pool size garage filled with whiteboards that Philip is scribbling on.
The door's not even locked. I can't emphasize that enough. Anyone could just walk into this, bat cave.
Philip and Shitaro aren't idiots, but they're not super great at the secret stuff. They just kind of get by.
I gotta wonder, what their financing situation is, because, between this and some of their tech gear that they end up having later on, how do these guys afford any of it?
Well, like they said, the person who owns the building and presumably was paying the rent is dead, so there may be some box somewhere that's getting a bunch of bills put in that nobody's really collecting on yet.
Are they doing, insurance fraud or social security fraud?
I don't know, man. Futo City is weird.
Maybe all the banks that they owed money to ended up melting.
Yeah, whenever somebody goes over there to try to inspect the property, they get killed by the, architect dopant.
People have been trying to evict them for years. Akiko is just the first person who survived the trip.
With her protagonist's power. But back to Philip. He is kind of a, living Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. And when Akiko meets him, he is currently, writing out all the information he can on Magma, because it was brought up before, and he just seems to be researching the subject.
Yeah, he can kind of matrix astral project himself into a library inside of his mind. It's a very early aughts special effect.
And a kind of direct ripoff of The Matrix, guns, lots of guns, except it's books, lots of books. Akiko kind of triggers a bit of his weakness in that she mentions something he doesn't really know about, and he starts Wikipedia diving in the Gaia library about that. And Shitaro shows up and is pissed off because he's going to have to let him research all of this and, wait until he knows all about that subject. So another weird, physical embodiment of an internet subculture. Just Wikipedia divers.
Yeah, it seems like the writers kind of are intending to have him read as on the spectrum at some point, and, on the spectrum in a very TV way.
Shotaro uses some clues that he saw at the locations to kind of do like a keyword search in the guide library. He has access to all of the knowledge in the world, but he doesn't actually know all of it, so he needs to know like where to prune down and find little specific bits.
And then after they find out some information on the missing guy, which turns out to be the boyfriend of the childhood friend of the main character.
Marina's boyfriend, I think Togawa or Tosuke, or more accurately, about to be dead. Yeah, they figure out his next hit location, and they depart, although only Shotaro actually physically leaves, for reasons that will become soon clear.
It turns out that the magma creature was targeting a series of businesses, rather the same series of offices of the same business that he held a grudge against, that he was fired from.
Yeah, Windscale. Some fashion designers that happen to make the hats that Shotaro really likes.
So they meet up, and the boyfriend turns into some kind of... I know this costume from somewhere. Like, that's like a character from League of Legends, right? Or a skin.
He's a glowy magma man. It's not a super complicated design.
But I know I've seen that face before in some kind of video game, and it's just bugging the crap out of me.
Kind of Akuma looking, maybe? Like the Street Fighter villain?
Maybe. Who knows? All I'm saying is, like, the costume designer saved some time on this one. They just walked into a shop and just pulled something off the shelf.
Well, we get to something a lot more recognizable, as Shotaro says that he's going to stop him, and corrects himself, and that will stop him. He pulls out from his back the transformation device, the double driver, because it's just a common ability of all tokusatsu protagonists to pull a device the size of a phone book out from your back without any apparent pocket or anything. They just slap it onto your belt.
Well, it kind of has a jacket that maybe you can hide it behind, but...
It makes a bit more sense for him, but it's just a bit silly. Anyway, he slaps it on, and back in the kind of underground garage, a similar device just materializes on Philip's belt, and he's like, "Oh, it's time to do this." Shotaro pulls out the Joker memory. Philip pulls out the Cyclone memory. They both slap him in, and Shotaro transforms into Kamen Rider Double. Initial thoughts on this design, Sam?
It's a binary transformation, clearly split down the center. A nice, good visual cue for the audience to understand what the power set is going to be, though I have zero idea what the Joker power set does at this point.
I guess I could say that now. Like, when he first transforms, there's a big burst of wind, but then when the Magma memory sends out he just sends flaming balls of stone and stuff. Philip decides to swap out his memory specifically, and occasionally they do stuff where one eye will glow when the person in charge of that side is like talking or thinking, and maybe they'll do alien hand stuff, which is kind of moving half of them. They're pretty well coordinated though, because as they go into it later, their minds are linked. Anyway, Philip decides to swap out his Cyclone memory for the Luna memory, which lets him do some kind of big whip arm kind of bendy stuff and just kind of swat the projectiles out of the air.
Very Mr. Fantastic, Stretch Armstrong type of stuff.
To get into this right now, Joker, the ability of that memory is the wild card, in that it let the overall transformation take the powers of the element that Philip is using. If Philip is using Cyclone, as he usually does, it's kind of his favorite one, it lets him do stuff like wind, kind of the bursts of wind, and he's a lot more agile and can move really fast. But with Luna, he can bend his body around and do stuff like that. And in the next episode, there's also the heat memory, and with that, he can do like flaming punches and kicks and do stuff like that. Whereas the metal memory, you see, it kind of focuses the power of it into the big staff thing he does. So he could do like kind of whip staff or heat staff, or a wind staff that sends out wind blades. And, minor spoiler, the third memory is Trigger, which is just a gun that shoots out the different elements.
Okay.
It's using the power for himself in the melee weapon or in the ranged weapon.
Okay. I guess it makes sense. There's a fight. It's, pretty good fight choreography. Oh, I don't think we mentioned the boyfriend used some kind of weird USB arm port tattoo, which I'm not sure is just standard issue for the citizenry in this particular universe. Yeah, not very subtle.
Yeah, it's generally a hidden underclothes on some part of the Gaia memory user. It's a quick fight. The Magma Dopant is quickly overwhelmed, and Double does a memory break on him, which, after it knocks him down, kind of transforms him back into human. The Gaia memory pops out and breaks. So, everything's good. He's taken down. And then a goddamn T-Rex bursts out of the ground and, fucking eats him.
Yes, it's a stealth dinosaur just kind of swimming through the concrete.
Kind of a surprising twist at the end of Ep 1. So, which leads us right into Episode 2, Those Who Make the City Cry.
We are treated to a fight with a Kamen Rider versus a T-Rex head with human-sized arms and legs and a tail. It's one of the weirder costumes I think I've seen in a Tokusatsu property, though I'm sure that's going to not stand for long.
The T-Rex memory does have the ability to kind of draw in debris and detritus from the area and form a full-size T-Rex body behind it to do kind of big wrecking moves.
Won't see until the end of this episode.
It goes a bit bad for Double at the beginning, but then his big car tank thing that was sent out of the garage at the end of the first episode, with Akiko accidentally trapped inside because it just transformed from part of the machinery.
Mm-hmm.
It shows up and smacks the T-Rex out of the way and just kind of drives it off.
We get back a little bit into the mystery. We see a flashback with the drug dealer. There's some time with the femme fatale and the main character. They flash back to their time as children in school together. They're very sad.
There's some reminiscing as the boyfriend is soon found dead, as announced over a radio broadcast. There's lots of kind of old school features in this show. People listening to the radio a lot, which is not a thing much anymore. Hopefully people listen more to podcasts.
Dead, but surprisingly unchewed up.
Shotaro tries to go to one of his street informants, which is really just a guy who just kind of watches people and maybe has a blog and makes fun of Shotaro like all the best characters do for being a bit of a old-timey, idiot.
A half-boiled detective.
Akiko, she very angrily says her catchphrase for the first time. I didn't hear anything about this. How do you feel about Akiko in these first couple episodes?
I don't know. She's the comic relief character, and she's good at that.
I'll say that she, on my initial watch of the show, I didn't like her, but she has a lot of good growth. And by the end, I really liked her. Especially with some specific things that they do with her.
Like hide the fact from her that her father was gunned down in a bloody rescue operation. They really should have told her about that.
Shotaro goes back to inspect some of the locations that were attacked to get more clues as to the identity of this, other perpetrator. And there's a weird scene with a giant T-Rex head kind of peeking around corners and stalking Shotaro for a little bit.
Which was hilarious.
Yeah. And after he barely survives the attack, his informant comes back and says that the boyfriend was seen buying the guy a memory with someone else, who the details they go into a bit later, but they were buying from a very well-dressed man who had a scarf with a bright red spot like a bloodstain.
That is a very distinctive costume for a drug dealer. And I know he's not a drug dealer, but it's a close enough proxy that he should probably be a little more low-key.
Low-key isn't really his style. This guy, Kirihiko, is flashy, and he seems to love the fact that he's selling superpowered devices that end up killing people. We see him briefly giving a effective sales speech to an old businessman who seems to be buying a Gaia memory. Are you impressed with his acumen as his fellow salesman, Sam?
I am, yes. He closed that deal very effectively, but I gotta say, I'm probably going to be talking a lot of shit about the police department in this particular series, but if they can't figure out who this guy is, if this is his, costume and his deal, God, they're just not great at their jobs.
It's just the guy stalking around the back alleys of the city wearing the white collar formal wear, covered in bloodstains, and talking about becoming a god.
I could tell this guy's a villain from 100 yards. His outfit says probable cause. Just throw him in the back of a police car.
Shotaro now has a few more clues. The three main clues are the facts that, 1, he noticed kind of a wings design at all of the locations that were attacked. 2, a woman was seen buying a memory with the boyfriend, Togawa. And 3, Marina is really the only other character that's been introduced in the episode that would make sense to be the perpetrator. And with all those combined, whoops, it's Marina.
It is the Law and Order conundrum. The one actor that you kind of recognize. Oh no, they actually did it.
And upon learning this, Philip throws some goddamn shade at Shotaro, saying that, I bet the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to go to her, be a big, real softie, and almost get killed by her when she tricks you and tries to get away. And Shotaro decks him.
And then he goes and meets up with Marina. She tells him that she just wanted to be a designer, and now she's going to be a dinosaur. And so she tries to kill him.
But it turns out that Shotaro, having at least a little bit of hardboiledness in him, did call the cops. And they're all there to arrest her.
Or get killed, more likely.
Yeah, at this point, they're not really equipped to deal with guy memory perpetrators. It's another transformation and another big old fight.
Well, it's a big ol' fight once Philip shows up in the armored tank.
Revolgary.
The what?
It's a dumb name. You don't need to remember that. We could just call it the big tank.
I'll just call it the tank. Can I call it the tank?
You can call it the tank.
Okay, I'm gonna call it the tank. So he shows up in the tank, he gets out of the tank, and then he passes out on the ground, which seems like a really bad idea.
Yeah, kind of a major weakness. He half-heartedly says, "Hey, Akiko, can you look after my body while we fight? Thanks." And then they dash off. Philip really doesn't care about physical things.
But, he could have stayed in the tank and done the same thing. There's a tank right there.
He would have had to pitch the memories out the window, but yeah. There's a fight, the T-Rex forms the body around him, and oh no, it accidentally snags the van that Akiko and Philip's body are hiding in. So, crazy car chase time.
Very early aughts, late 90s video game style special effects going on. It kind of reminded me of, do you remember the Crash Test Dummies CGI cartoon? And I'm assuming the answer is no, because I'm one of two people in the universe who watched that show.
I remember having watched it, but all of the details have been purged from my mind, and until we end up recording a podcast about it, I'm going to call that a win.
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of that. Very reboot-esque level CGI going on here.
Which, for a Tokusatsu show, I have to tell you, Sam, this is them spending a lot more money than usual, because it's the first episode. They actually closed off a street so he could drive around them with a motorcycle and stuff like that.
All the future toys are previewed. There's a flying bike. There's a Hot Wheels-style bike back unit trader thing on the tank. And
his motorcycle can turn into a, basically, hovercraft or a jet ski.
There's a scene where both Akiko and Marina try to Gwen Stacy themselves, but he is able to save them.
Philip kind of uses one hand to remote control the flight unit to save Akiko, while Marina is saved by Shotaro himself, proving that together the two of them are the perfect detective. Yay.
Yes. And then we immediately smash cut to a scene back to the evil 1% family and a very hot dude's butt.
A naked as hell meeting where everybody is in their transformed states. Wakana's transformed, Seiko's transformed, the Elder is transformed, and even their cat, I'm not sure if you noticed, is in a monster form.
I did not notice that the cat was in a monster form. That makes me very happy.
This is a family that's crazy enough to actually put a transformation belt on a cat and, stick one of those little guy memories into it to have it do weird cat stuff.
That's wonderful. And, by the way, I really do gotta emphasize, this guy has a great ass. This is a guy who does not skip leg day. He does squats every day.
Tokusatsu shows, the two biggest audiences are young kids who buy toys and the mothers who buy toys for the kids, and you can tell how they're kind of playing to both sides in this scene.
Yeah, there's a scene foreshadowing the future drama, where this drug dealer / fiance of one of the daughters, wasn't really clear on that.
I think he and Psycho are engaged at this point.
That's wonderful. I'm very happy for them. So he's brought into the family, given a transformation. Then we smash cut back to the detective house, where Akiko has made a new sign for the detective agency, and has declared herself to be the new chief, because she is their landlord, and because her father is dead, even though she doesn't know that yet. She finds that out, right?
No, not through the whole series. She doesn't figure it out, ever. No, they tell her at some point. I forget exactly which point, though. They may actually only let her know in one of the movies, which is kind of fucked up. Because because Tokusatsu movies are very pseudo-canon.
So there's a chance she doesn't know through the entire series?
Well, I think she knows by the end, but it's just, you may not see the actual point where she finds out unless you watch one of the shitty crossover things where they also have to, fight somebody from Decade.
All I'm saying is, especially your landlord, I own my house, but when I rented, if I knew my landlord's father died in a bloody accident and I did not tell them, I would be homeless.
That closes out the first 2 episodes. Sam, what do you think of the start of Kamen Rider Double?
Well, it definitely started in media res, which I appreciate. Yeah, I like that, it has a structure, it has a built-in thing, and it's just kind of trusting the audience to catch up. I appreciated that. The fight choreography was good. The characters seem entertaining, even though there's some unfortunate stereotyping, shorthanding going on with some of the characters, especially Philip. Is Philip just going to be a really problematic character for the entire run?
Shotaro is kind of a point of view character. He's a relatively normal person, you know. He's recognizable. He's like a regular guy. Philip is kind of a weird. It's like the arc of Data over the next generation, I'd say. Right now we have season 1 Data, but we will get like season 7 Data by the end of it.
Okay, okay. I just, I worry about TV shows trying to portray people on the spectrum. I worry about I worry about TV shows portraying non-binary or kind of gender fluid characters.
He's not specifically on the spectrum. He has sci-fi amnesia, I'll say, and so everything he knows he just knows from the Gaia library, and that's why he's just finding out about the world and stuff like that. Also, as for the non-binary thing, that's really just him being a very, very attractive boy. No, yeah, he is.
You sure?
He is technically male.
I know he's male, or really not non-binary, but more like, is he gay?
I'm not sure if he really cares. Like, he may be ace. Although there's definitely like that special relationship between him and Shotaro that gets lots of shipping done about them.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was kind of leading into that.
I mean, they're partners, Sam. They're the best partners ever.
Okay, and I mean, that's totally cool. I just worry about the show. I've seen a lot of bad portrayals, you know?
They have a very great friendship that can be interpreted as a very great special relationship if you want to.
Okay, so that's the end of episode 1.
And 2.
Oh, and episode 2, that's right. And we have questions, or what was the segment called? Because I forget everything.
Let's say it's case notes, because I don't want to go with the dumb thing you made me call it for episode 0. Because we'll call it case notes, because that makes sense for this goddamn show we're doing. We'll change it when we do a different show.
Alright, case notes. So we're going to do one kind of plot-relevant question and one kind of philosophical question. So the plot-relevant question, or Sam's speculation corner for the week, is what is the evil rich family's long game? And this is kind of a confusing one. It might just be, you're right, they might just be focusing totally on short-term games and not worrying about the fact that they're undermining the entire economy, which would jeopardize their place in the social structure. If they are just selling wild superpowers to people, knocking down buildings, destroying businesses, destroying banks, destroying customers, they're going to be jeopardizing their status as 1% elites. Are they traitors? Are they actually, are they anarchists? Are they trying to bring the system down? Are they aware of what they're doing?
Do they even care?
I don't know. They might not care. There is that possibility as well. Wealth down several generations usually is inherited by people who have no idea how they got it in the first place. So maybe these people just don't know how the economy structures. They were born into a life of privilege, and they are just doing things for entirely short-term games, not realizing the long-term sabotage that they're doing to themselves.
Truly, Kamen Rider Double is a parable of capitalism run wild.
It might be. It might just be.
So are Shotaro and Philip socialism then? That they completely share the resources of two people or something?
Well, they don't seem opposed to the capitalistic structure. I mean, as a private detective, in fact, he's charging his clients. He seemed to be charging the police officers as well. Or there is a bribery situation going on there. So they are bought into the capitalist structure of the society. Maybe more so than the villains that they're fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speculate because I know exactly what they're doing, but I love the stuff you're saying.
Okay, so that's my current wild speculation. That the evil rich family is 1% traitors and that they're anarchists trying to bring society down.
But on something that maybe I'll say a little bit more, in this episode, we saw a jilted couple kind of buying Gaia memories together. If you were going to go on a revenge-filled rampage, what Gaia memories do you think you'd get? And I don't know, Sam, you're a married man. Do you think you would get complementary powers with your wife?
I think as a married man, I would let Sarah pick first, and then I would try and pick a power that would complement whatever she went with on our revenge-filled fantasy. I'm going to send her a message on Discord and ask her what superpower she would pick in a revenge-filled massacre.
I mean, I'd probably get a programming-based thing or something. I'm boring in that way. Or maybe some kind of video game or board game type thing.
Okay, I have asked the question, and she is typing her response. Okay, she went with omnipotence, which is kind of cheating. I guess I would go with omniscience then, So if she goes omnipotence, I go omniscience. She can do anything, I can know anything, and therefore we are complementary.
The weird thing is, I think there's a specific Gaia memory for Sarah's answer,
Okay.
but it's kind of a spoiler. Like, I'll just say, like, a passing mook doesn't get the omnipotence Gaia memory.
Sounds great. So she is all powerful, I am all knowing, and we are unstoppable.
That's very romantic. That's it for our first episode of Brokusatsu. Next time, we are going to be covering episodes 3 and 4 of Kamen Rider Double. Don't touch the M. The only thing left is to go on to this question for Sam, like we'll do every episode. Sam, are you prepared to put it all on the line to save your family? Family?
Sure.
We'll see. Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, hold on. Like, I can edit this in later. We got a late entry from Sarah. Nightmare fueling people's psyches inwards on themselves, maybe. So she'd want the terror power. Interesting.
And I don't know what the powers are that would be complementary to that. If she is...
Sam, can I say something kind of interesting about your wife?
She's scary. Yeah, she's frightening.
Not just she's scary. Off the top of the head, she's picked the superpowers of the two biggest antagonists of the show.
Yeah, I married a supervillain, and I love her for it.
Well, hopefully your relationship goes as well as Psycho Sekirihiko's.
Oh.
You'll see what I mean in a few episodes. Anyway.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.